Welcome back to Balancing Acts. I'm your host, Linda Hamilton, and we're talking with Betty Hines, the CEO and founder of Women Elevating Women. And we're talking about breaking seven figures. How does a small business find the strategies to to achieve that success? Because so few, only 2% of women break seven figures, and only 9% of all small businesses do. Betty, you have defined five pillars of success. And I know you focus on getting businesses from six figures to 1 million and more. So, how did you select those five pillars?
Well, thank you for asking me that question, Linda. In my experience, I've been a C suite executive, I've been an entrepreneur, and now I work at the capacity as a consultant. So, what I did is that I modeled characteristics that I saw in successful women entrepreneurs and women executives. And why I took the woman executives, because if you find a woman executive that has a income salary of six figures plus, typically they have their own little mini P&L. They're running their own small business. And so in the back of their mind, they have to think like an entrepreneur to be successful with that. So that's how I selected the five pillars. And the five pillars are collaborate, and I'll go into that later, connect, communicate, courage, and cultivate. But these are pillars that I saw resemble successful entrepreneurs and successful women executives.
So, let's go a little deeper into one of them. What would you say is the beginning of where they work once they become WEW members?
The biggest one I see for women is how to collaborate.
Mm.
It's the collaborate pillar. That is something that is not particularly a strength that I've seen in the past of women. We're getting better at it. But if you take a look at just individuals who are running their own business, you must know how to collaborate. If you're in the corporate space, you need to learn how to collaborate with other divisions. In the business community, you need to learn how to collaborate each other. As I said before, and you'll hear me say it again, you don't have to do it alone. Particularly at a smaller business, you won't have the bandwidth sometimes to take on some of these contracts or take on these initiatives. Why not work together? And so through collaboration, and I tell them all the time, there's enough out there for all of us. There is really enough for all of us. And the example I will tell them is, how many OBGYNs do you know out there? There's a lot of them. It's how they execute and how it determines the number of patients that they might have. But collaboration to me is one of the very key pillars. If you're willing to collaborate, you're willing to succeed.
So let's break that down, collaboration, a little more, because it can mean different things, right? In an OBGYN, right, there are multiple doctors because they're on call 24/7,
Mm-hmm.
right, when they deliver babies. And so they might have partnerships in, or some of them work through hospitals. But so what are some of the other forms of collaboration that can make a difference to someone wanting to grow?
For those of that are in the government contracting space, some might have a certain level of clearance and some may not. You can partner with them. You can work as a subcontractor for someone that is a prime. For those who are not in the government space, maybe you both go into this business, this organization, and say, hey, look, my expertise is on this piece of what your needs are. Want to assess the needs of a corporation, but I have a partner here. I have someone that I know that can supplement what I'm doing so we can work collaboratively to really meet your needs. That's after you've done the assessment of what are some of the needs of that particular business. But too often we want to take a big bite. We want to eat it all when we know we don't have the bandwidth, or we might not have the capacity or the capabilities. So reach out to another woman business who you know has that capability and ask them to go on with you on a joint venture.
And that's great advice. And one of the simplest forms, I think, of collaboration, people don't always think of it this way, are when you hire independent contractors. That's a capacity issue. I don't have employees, I don't have a team. And maybe it's a smaller business or someone, it could be occasionally it's a friendly competitor where they're helping you fill in. And in other times is you if you don't have the capacity to grow and you take on work that's too much, that's maybe one of the worst things that can happen, right? Because that can hurt your reputation. it can hurt where you can't deliver on the things you've promised. So independent contractors is a form of collaboration.
Yes.
You want to do it with a compliance mindset, but that is what we see across so many of these businesses,
Mhm.
right? There. Do you have any examples of a success story of someone who used collaboration to actually break seven figures and maybe move on, outgrow
Sure.
Woo, so to speak, which is a credit to Woo if they grow larger.
I would say my partnership and collaboration with Women Presidents Organization. Um, Oftentimes, when WPO will go to a conference, even the WeBank conference, they would talk about WPO. And sometimes when they're interviewing the women say, well, I'm not quite at the seven figures. I don't have that million. And in the past, they would have to say, oh, we're sorry. Our apologies. Once you get there,
Right.
those words is like a slam, closing the door in a woman's face. Now, what they can say, well, you're not there. That's our requirement. However, we have a sister partner here that will take you at six figures. And once you scale, we can move you into the WPO organization. We've done that numerous times. I would say over 10% of the women that have come through WOO, we have moved into WPO. We also have women who there might not have been a local chapter nearby, that rather than lose them, and this is a collaboration, we kept them in our organization as a member at large. And then when they were ready to open, then we moved them back over to WPO. So that to me is a true example of a collaboration that's been a win-win both for WPO and for WOO.
Yeah, and for our audience listening, WPO stands for the Women Presidents Organization. It is a peer advisory organization for women-owned businesses of $1 million and up. And Betty and I have been involved with the Women Presidents Organization for many, many years. And it is a nonprofit business model.
Mhm.
And so they have some wonderful business owners who kind of serve as an advisory board. But one more thing on collaboration. Some will fear collaborating, right? They'll fear they're going to take your IP or maybe it's going to, or the revenue won't work out and there might be disagreements about that. How do you address the fears of collaborating with other business owners who are not your employees?
Well, there's a lot of women organizations, and we could go and list many of them that have certain elements of a WOO or a WPO, but it's really how you execute. You have to find out, the woman has to find out what is the organization that's going to best fit their needs. So for WOO, we're for those who are six figures and we're a global organization. There are other people who might appear similar to ours, but it's what your need is. The thing that we differentiate with WOO is that we have other partners, one being Women Presidents Organization. And our whole mission and goal is to take that woman business to help them scale to the next level. And we also recognize too that some of the women don't want to be at the $1 million threshold. They're very comfortable at a $500,000, and that's fine. But
Right.
where do they go? They stay with us. The other difference that we have is that there's a lot of organizations out there that have these 8 weeks or 12-week courses. Once they've completed those courses, we're the what's next. And that's why we are a differentiator, because once they've completed, and I won't name them, but there's several out there that you and I both know, where they have 12 weeks and then they graduate and they might stay connected with each other via email. They still need to have that nurturing. And so where do they go? And if they're not ready for a Women Presidents Organization, we are that organization that can satisfy that need. We can continue to nurture them. So that is where I see that there's a differentiation between what we do and what the organizations do, and why you have to assess what is the best fit for you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And there are many organizations for both men and women who want to grow. And I think you mentioned earlier accountability and support, right? It's
Mhm.
not enough to just take a class or a workshop, because when it stops, you still
Yeah.
need the support. You still need the
Yes.
accountability, because entrepreneurs are constantly brainstorming. They're
Yes, ma'am.
constantly coming up with new ideas, trying to find ways to pivot. So I think that collaboration is one of the most important things you can do to help you get your business, especially if you're at 100,000, 200,000, 250,000, and you want to make it to 500. Maybe you want to stay there. That's
Mm-hmm.
always your choice. But at the same time, you want it to be your choice. What is
Yes.
it you want? What objective
Mhm.
do you want to be able to get you there? And there's lots of support available for that. Betty, if people want to understand more about your pillars, where can they find information about collaboration?
It's on our website, woocrew.com. That's www.crew.com. It will speak to all our pillars. And right there, that's some people that we've had at one of our conferences, two of my advisors to the CEO. But all the pillars are there. It also talks about the different levels of memberships that we have. The favorite membership level is the member at large. And then we have what is called the Woo Crew. And the Woo Crew is one that I personally facilitate. We meet 6 times a year, but they also have 5 pillar meetings. Our Woo Crew members also are assigned this year. We've partnered with WPO, where they are able to have a mentor from the WPO organization. We have a cohort program, and these are women who have revenues between 100,000 and 500,000. They might need some additional business acumen. And this is where our CFO, Tiana Ligon, will facilitate that group because she dives deep into the numbers with them and their KPIs and assigns them the accountability partners. And they also get a WPO member.
Thank you for sharing that. We're going to take a break, and I hope you'll stay with us because when we come back, we're going to talk to Betty about another one of her pillars. We're going to talk about, of the 5, I think we'll come back and talk about communication. Stay with us.